What up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. It's DeMarius Jackson. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about eliminating distractions. So things that you can do to make your practice session more effective and more efficient. And so when I think about an effective and an efficient practice routine, one word comes to mind, and that is focus. And so your ability to focus for an extended period of time is what's going to make one of the biggest differences in your practice sessions going really, really well or just going okay. Story time. Let's think back to when I first started playing saxophone back when I was 12. I used to have these daily assignments that my teacher would give me. I had to practice for 30 minutes a day. My parents would hear at me playing down the hall, make sure it was 30 minutes. They would sign off on it. I would turn it into my teacher the next day to get credit. And that's pretty much how we kept up with our practice and grades and all that good stuff back in elementary, or actually middle school. And so time goes on and I move on and I actually get a private lesson teacher. She was a trumpet teacher. For some reason, I couldn't find a saxophone, but I had a trumpet teacher and the lessons were very, very simple. I would go in, she would play a scale on the trumpet, and I would figure out what the notes were on my saxophone and then learn that scale in the lesson, learn 2 per lesson. And then my next week's assignment was to come back in and play those 2 scales and learn an additional 2. Now, that might not be the most efficient way to learn things, but I learned something very valuable in doing that and reflecting on that time. Number one, I didn't have any theoretical musical knowledge. I didn't know anything about sharps and flats. All I knew was the scale. And for some reason in South Carolina, if I remember correctly, all the region and all state bands, you had to play 8 or 12 scales. I can't remember the exact number within 2 minutes. And so I would practice these scales with the metronome over and over again until I got it right and it was nice and clean, and then move on to the next scale and move on to the next one and so forth and so on. Whenever I got bored in those practice sessions, because boredom does happen, whenever I got bored, I would move on to, an etude assignment out of the book that we were working on in class, and I would just fill up the time and move on to the next assignment. So when reflecting in that, one thing was a constant, and that was the ability to focus on that one thing. And focus leads to a flow state. So if you haven't heard of this before, you can YouTube it. I'll leave a recommendation to a later. I can't even pronounce the dude's name, but I read his book. It's very, very good about getting into a flow state. And one of the prerequisites that I would put into getting into that state is, number one, making sure that you enjoy what you're doing. Most of the time, if you're not liking what you're doing, then you should probably find something that you like to do and go do those things. But that's neither here nor there. Like what you're doing, and I had no distractions at the time. So I would literally go into a room, my bedroom or wherever it was in my house, with just a tuner and a metronome and a stand and my music. And that was it. And I found it very easy to get into the flow state. And I tried to replicate that now, decades later, and it can still happen for me. And so one thing that we need to be careful of, and I'm not trying to downplay the importance of smartphones and all of these things, but we need to be careful of having the smartphone with us all the time. And so what I mean by that is, this is a tuner, this is a metronome, this has playback, this has all the conveniences, and I'm not trying to downplay it. I love that fact about this. However, it's very, very easy to turn on the iPhone or whatever Android that you're on when you're practicing and click TikTok and click Instagram and click Facebook and get distracted by the millions of pretty people and the multitude of pretty playing that you have, and get distracted. And then the next thing you know, you've derailed any kind of practicing that you're doing. Now, once again, there are many methods, I guess you could say, to practicing. I believe one's called Pomodoro method, where you practice for 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break. That could work for you. It could work for a lot of people. Flow state seems to work for me. So that's one thing that I like to put out to the world, is try to get into the flow state. And the number one way to do that is get rid of this. Try to eliminate digital distractions and try to eliminate physical distractions. And so when I say physical distractions, right, this is a cluttered world. Oh, if you could only see what's on the other side of this camera. It's like a hot mess up in here. So I like to practice in a clean space in my office or in an actual practice room, and if I think back on college, all those rooms had were a piano and a stand and a window. That's all you really need. Bring in your music, bring in your stand, leave all the distractions all at the door. Anything that you had going on in your life, try to eliminate it and leave it at the door and come into a practice session very, very clean. Give it a shot. Might not be for everybody, but I think that it will help a lot of people out there. So once again, get used to this number. I don't even know how to turn this thing off. There we go. Slide it off. Is this going to focus? Slide it off. Get to practicing. I'll see you all on the next video. Out. Oh yeah, like, comment, and subscribe.